Good day to everyone. Today we are having a conversation with Natasha. We are Gentes. We're a small association of Italian students who focus on geopolitics. So we usually organize events and invite experts in geopolitics to talk. So this is something different because it is the first time we interview someone in English, and today we have a Russian YouTuber, Natasha, from the YouTube channel Natasha's Adventures. Hi, Natasha, and thank
Hi.
you very much for accepting our invitation.
Yes, thank you very much for inviting me.
We, I thought of having a conversation with you because here in Italy, I think there's a lot of attention on what happens in various places in Ukraine, in Israel, which is something completely different, and in Russia too. But I think there is very little attention about young Russians or Russians more generally who left Russia. And so I was a bit curious about what you have to say. So I'll first ask you to talk about how your channel began. How did you open your channel?
Okay, so I started my to film videos for my channel about 5 years ago. It was a channel about Russia, the Russian culture, the Russian language. Also, I come from the east of Russia, the city of Khabarovsk, Vladivostok, and what I noticed is that these areas are more interesting, even more interesting than maybe Moscow or St. Petersburg, because there's fewer information about these places online. So mm, I I saw it as my mission, maybe, to share my culture in English. Yeah. So my goal was to connect foreigners with the Russian culture. And I just liked making videos. That's how I started. And yes, I think that my channel got a bigger boost in 2021. And since that time, I have been making videos. Then I continued making videos when the war with Ukraine started in February 2022, and I had to leave Russia because I felt unsafe there. My channel wasn't only about politics, but I also felt the need to speak up. Even before this invasion, I also made some comments, like made videos about, for example, protests that happened in Khabarovsk. And I felt really anxious even before the war, but after that, it became obvious that I have to leave. So, as many Russians, I moved to Georgia, and I'm still here.
Okay, thanks. Yes, I remember watching your vlogs, or even one time I think you went almost to the border with North Korea.
Yes. Yeah,
Um,
it was in my home region, Primorsky Krai. The thing is that this region borders with North Korea, and there is a town. And so I went there with a YouTuber from the United States, and it was quite an adventure. Yeah, and it is a pretty unusual region, Primorsky Krai, where I come from, because from one side there's China, then to the south there's North Korea, and to the east there's the Sea of Japan.
yes. And I've got a little list of questions here.
Mhm.
Um, so, can you talk about when the war started? So, the invasion of Ukraine started. Um, what was um, the mood in Russia? Yeah. So, what did how did people react? Common people. I mean, I think you were still in the
Khabarovsk.
east in
Yes.
Khabarovsk.
Um, yes, I noticed that in the east of Russia, things are kind of slower, and every like all the concentration of activities is happening in Moscow, in the capital. That's why when I got the news about the invasion, I remember that mm, I didn't see that people around me are worried about this as well. Of course, they were also worried, but it is hard to understand who is on your side and who. I remember that day I went out to the streets in Khabarovsk, and there were a lot of thoughts in my head, a lot of anxieties, but I felt um, disheartened that I cannot express it because it's unsafe to express it. Because several days after that, the government passed a bill on prohibiting criticizing the actions of the Russian military forces and spreading like misinformation about the actions of the Russian military. And of course, in Moscow, the reaction was very huge, and people were shocked because nobody expected this invasion. Because even though our relationships with Ukraine were worsening with every year. In the past years, the state media has been antagonizing Ukraine on the TV. So those people who are most likely to believe this governmental point of view, they already have this maybe negativity towards Ukraine. But regular people, we didn't feel that, and also the fact that we were very much connected culturally with Ukraine, and many Ukrainian singers performed in Russian cities because Russia is like a bigger country. Obviously, our show business is very profitable, and it's the common post-Soviet space where people still might speak Russian in addition to the languages of their countries. So many people from the Russian regions who border with Ukraine, the regions that border with Ukraine, many people from there would go to Ukraine to visit their relatives. That's why people were so much connected, and this war it felt as um, I'm afraid to say attacking our own people, because this is what Ukrainians will not like, because I think that they are a different people, even a different ethnic group with a different language. But still, like I have Ukrainian roots because many people in the Far East are descendants of peasants from Ukraine and from Belarus. So we were very connected. That's why it was shocking.
And I think you had some parents, some relatives, sorry, who were Ukrainian, or or
Uh,
not.
I no, I
Again,
didn't have relatives. Mm, I I would say I don't know about any relatives, but maybe there are some far remote relatives because my ancestors came to the Far East not so long ago, just about 1 century ago, and even they spoke Ukrainian on my mother's side. I mean, so and I knew about that. I knew that there in my region many people have ancestry. Yes, ancestry.
yes, yes, it starts.
Yes.
Okay, and um, you mentioned the Soviet Union, and I wanted to ask, um, how is the Soviet Union time perceived by Russians today? I think, is there a difference between young Russians and older ones, or this is not um, this is not about age?
So I think that mostly people who want to return the Soviet Union are people of the age older 60. Because even my parents, who are about 50, um, they understand that they are not always was not everything was perfect in the Soviet Union. And we young people, like my age, I'm 24, and our generation thinks that the Soviet Union, saying it in the modern words, it is like cringe because um, from as I see it, it was a system with no freedom. Even in economy, there was no freedom, and uh, people stood in long lines to buy food or buying jeans, like getting jeans from somewhere was a big thing. But what is even more, the repressions and the absence of freedom of speech. That's what I don't like. And so, what is more, I didn't even lived under the USSR. That's why maybe my words don't have much weight because I didn't see it. But what I know from history, I don't like that regime, and mm, it feels that people who are ruling Russia now, those people like how things were back then, and now by their actions, by the new laws, they are trying to bring the Soviet Union back. And
Yes,
unfortunately, the
yes,
younger
continue.
generation, um, the kids who study in the Russian schools now, they are already involved in these actions. For example, there are special um, classes for kids now that are called conversations about the important, where the government is promoting its point of view, or there are military preparation classes in some schools, and overall the military agenda. So I'm worried about the new generation of kids in Russian schools.
So, and let's move on. And
Okay.
so, can you tell me of when you decided to leave Russia? Was it difficult? How did it go?
Yes, so just when the war started, I realized that I want to leave Russia, but I had some things to finish, like I was finishing my university in Khabarovsk. That's why I postponed it. And I can say that I spent 6 months um, in Russia And I can compare it to people who lived in the Nazis Germany, because unlike those who left Russia just when after the war outbreak, unlike those people, I had a bit of opportunities to see how the environment was changing around me. So I also was anxious. What if our government will close the borders and I will not be able to move out? So, but I managed to focus on my studies, finished my thesis, and I got my diploma. And then I left in the autumn of 2022. I left for Georgia, and it wasn't difficult for me because because Georgia has a very good, very convenient conditions for the Russian citizens, because we can stay up to 1 year by a tourist visa. This is very helpful, and there is a big wave of Russian immigrants who came to Georgia, and still there are many Russians here, even though now it seems that after the 2 years mm, 2 years after the war started, many people left Georgia and found a way maybe to get a visa to the EU or to the United States. But I still see that there are many Russians here in Georgia and many events in Russians and so on. So, yes, I went to Georgia, and here I was able to go to the protests, and it was very relieving for me, because I finally got this opportunity to express my thoughts. And I went to there's no Russian embassy in Georgia, but there's a section of Russian interests by the embassy of Switzerland. That's how it's called. So it is the only place where we Russians can maybe appeal to the representatives of our government. So yeah, I visited quite a lot of protests here.
Yeah. And can you tell me? I think you visited other countries since you left Russia, maybe Armenia or
Yes,
something.
I traveled. It was just for, yeah, mostly for travel purposes. I went to Armenia, also to Montenegro, and to Turkey. Yes, and maybe something I don't remember.
And can you tell me? I think you attended an event in Montenegro, uh, journalism events. Can you
Yes,
tell us about it?
yes, it was a program. I'm trying to remember it was called. It was um yeah, Russia and America Media Lab. It is a program for students, not students, but like media people who work in media from Russia and from the United States. And so this program happens every year. And so we had online classes first, and then we met or offline in Montenegro, because this was the country where it was possible for people from Russia to come. And I also was counted as a person from Russia, although I live in Georgia, but still. And for the United States participants, it also was convenient. So we met there, and there also were conferences. And so we spoke about professional journalism and ethics in this sphere. We also learned about fact checking, and there were speakers from the Russian media, who a very prominent media, who are not so who are not allowed to work in Russia. So opposition media.
Was it? I think it was very enriching. I think. Uh,
Um, Yes, I spoke to other guys from Russia who have more involvement in journalism than me, and they said that yes, it is interesting, but also we kind of know this all because they studied journalism in their universities. But I think that the purpose of that program is in networking, finding new friends, connections, and for me, it was. Very useful because I don't have a background in journalism, and I remember that I felt a lot of inspiration after this program. So I spent 1 week there, and when I was returning to Georgia, I got new video ideas, new maybe insights, and so yes, so I enjoyed it a lot.
And then I think Montenegro is a kind of a middle ground. In fact, it was possible for you to attend, and even for American students. Uh, And I was thinking, how do how do you view the West, or rather, how do you think the West is so the EU or the US are perceived today by young Russians, let's say those who left Russia or that do not agree with the the Russian's government. I don't agree that much to the politics of almost shutting down the um, borders to Russian immigrants. So you said many Russians went to Georgia or Armenia, well, because they're bordering countries, but even because they couldn't go to the EU.
Mhm. Um, yes, I would say that the ultimate goal, personally for me, is to finally um, find myself in some country of the European Union that gives me more guarantees that I have in Georgia now. Because with all my respect and love for Georgia, there are also drawbacks here, and it's very hard to live in a place where I see no future. And I know that I will not get citizenship here, or I will not learn a language to the level of speaking with people like on daily basis. So um, I would like to move to the EU eventually. And I know that life in the West is not perfect. I visited the United States about 5 years ago when I participated in an educational program. So I have some impression from what life is there. And now I never went to Europe, only to Montenegro. For me, it was the closest to the European Union as I could get. And I still think that with all the risks and drawbacks that the Western countries have, I would like to, for now, I would like to live there because the repressions and the conditions in Russia overweight all the negative sides that I hear about Europe. For example, I heard that um, there's a big problem with violence, like in the center of Paris, for example. Not violence, but like you can be robbed in Paris, or that I don't know the bed bugs they're called. Well, it's not
Bed bugs.
the worst thing. Like these insects who live in the bed, the
Oh,
bed
okay.
something.
I don't know what they're called in English. Yes, but it's a small thing.
Yeah, I'm
I
sorry
think
for
it's
bringing this up. Yeah, bed
no,
bug.
no.
It's not the worst thing, but it just came up to my mind, and it is obviously it is definitely what the Russian government would use, the Russian propaganda on TV would use as one of the drawbacks of the West. But what else? I think I know that if now I go to Europe, it will be very hard for me to legalize there to get the citizenship. Also, the cost of living, and also the fact that democracies are more. Um, I think this is some idea that I heard that democracies look imperfect from outside because where there's freedom of speech, people tend to speak about the negatives of that country too. That's why mm, I see a lot of controversy, and sometimes it even um, makes me to worry a lot. Like, oh, I don't like Russia. I want to go to the West, but the West is also not perfect. So, what should I do? But then I realized that if Russia had the freedom of speech and media, there would be a lot of such news about Russia too. But unfortunately, the Russian opposition media are very restricted and limited. So that's how I feel about the West. And for me, the main value is freedom. Yes, and freedom and the guarantee of my safety. But at the same time, sometimes I think that I'm a part of the Russian culture, and eventually I would like to live in Russia. Maybe this is the thought that I started getting recently. That I'm so tired of living in the society where no one understands me, and here in Georgia, I don't speak the language. If I go to maybe Portugal, I will have to learn the Portuguese language, and I really hope that the Russian government will change as soon as possible because I don't want to wait. I don't want to wait for another 10 years. And now I cannot return to Russia because I will go to jail there. So on one hand, I don't know what to do, where to go. What I know for now is that as long as there are repressions and these ridiculous bills in Russia, like I cannot go there. So that's basically it.
And um, I was wondering, how do you think Georgia or the other countries near Russia, which the Russians who left Russia went to, how do you think these countries think they welcomed you? So, is there any friction, or is everything going smoothly?
Yeah, there is some tension in Georgia regarding the big influx of Russians here because of the territorial problems, like the occupation of Georgian lands by Russia and the recent war. Um, Sometimes I see some anti Russian sentiments, but mostly I see it online because it is some comments on TikTok. And because of negativity bias, it seems to me that there's so much hate towards me. And at some point of my being here, I felt this and I felt um, very stressed out here. Now I don't feel this way because I feel that I'm maybe integrated more. I still don't have like local friends and I don't work with local people. So I mostly live in my Russian information bubble. But still, after living here for 1 year and a half, I managed to talk to some Georgians to learn more, and now I'm more calm about this. And I've met a lot of people who say that like we welcome Russians like you, and overall, if we look on, at the facts, like what Georgia gave me, it is my I forget this word. This country gave me an asylum. Basically, I could start as my small business here to transfer it from Russia to here to open bank account, and so on. So I never met any negative attitude towards me, except of what I saw online on some comments. So, and I think even if there is some negativity, it is because of these political tensions. And 1 year ago, I actually made a video about this: are Russians discriminated in Georgia? And I then deleted that video because I think that yeah, YouTube loves clickbait. That's what the title of my video was about. Um, and there I described one situation when a guy, yeah, when a guy said to me in the street, like, "Oh, you Russians, how do you like it here, where there is no war?" and so on. But I'm not sure was it even an insult, or maybe that guy wanted to say something nice, but he just didn't manage to. I don't know. So now I feel much better than 1 year ago. And also, I think in Armenia, the situation is different because even the attitude to the Russian language there is less tense, and people greet you in Russian. And I think that's because Armenia didn't have, Armenian government didn't have so many problems with Russia as Georgia did. So there, I think it's a bit easier.
I don't know. I think you know, but Armenia has had I don't know if we can count as one or two wars with uh, Azerbaijan, and Armenia asked the Russian government it, to support it, but it didn't. Uh,
Mhm.
and so from what I know now, the relations are not so good between Armenia and Russia, at least at the government level. I'm not talking about people.
Yeah,
Um,
I was trying to follow this change of attitude from the Armenian government to the Russian government. I don't understand much, but I also heard about this the fact that the Russian peacekeepers didn't do what they had to do, and I think it is shameful for Russia because if Russia claims to be the peacekeeper of this region, right? If Russia, by the governmental point of view, defends people in Donbass, but why they didn't do anything in Armenia? So I think that it's and I'm really sorry for Armenia who believed Russia.
okay. um, I think we're almost to the end of my list of questions.
Okay.
I saw one video you made you did one month ago when Alexi Navalny died. Uh, he was killed in prison, and can can you talk about um, what you said? So, how was Alexei Navalny viewed as a political leader or a political figure, let's say, in Russia by young Russians?
Um, yes, I am embarrassed to say, and I said that in my video, that I was not a supporter of Alexei Navalny in the beginning because I simply could not believe that some oppositional actor can be so loud in Russia. So I thought that if he is allowed by Kremlin to do all these activities, it means that he is the agent of Kremlin. And that's the narrative that the Russian government itself also promoted to discredit Navalny. So, on one hand, they said that Navalny is the agent of the United States. But for another audience, for the possible supporters, the government said that actually he is our agent. We use him just to create visibility of some opposition so that you express your uh, emotions and that's it. So maybe several years ago, I finally understood that Navalny um, is not an agent of Kremlin and that he has true intentions to be um, like to be a politician in Russia. The thing is that the Russian political like the Russian politics is so much is basically killed by Putin because we don't have any competitors. All the political parties that we have, you probably know about this, about uh, the Communist Party or Liberal Democratic Party, they all just pawns of Kremlin, and they are not true opposition. So, um, and only after the death of Navalny, I started to look back and to all the years. For example, when he was poisoned in 2020, when he returned to Russia, and in 2021 there were big protests in Russian cities because he was immediately arrested when he returned. And I realized that even though I didn't believe him, for me, he was an important figure um, who sparked my interest in politics. And um, it was Navalny who um, made many people to understand that it is normal to go to protests, that if you go to a protest, it doesn't mean that you are a traitor of your country. It means that you just want to change something peacefully, and it is about a direct conversation, not about a rebellion. So he was, and also why it is a big loss for Russia, I think, because Navalny was so charismatic. So we lost a very significant person, and now of course there will be other politicians who also in the free Russia who also will be able to run for the office. For example, Ilya Yashin, but he is in prison now in Russia, and we don't know if he will come out of the prison, if he will stay alive. So yes, for many people it was a moment of desperation, and I think that we should have already understood everything 2 years ago when the war started. But still, there was some hope that Navalny is like an adult figure who knows better than you. And people felt maybe some support when they knew that Navalny is alive. Yes, he is in prison, but he can sent some messages to us through his lawyers, and he still commented some political events in Russia, even from the jail. But now this adult is gone, and we like kids who step into this cruel world, and we have to figure it all ourselves. And yes, that's all.
Understand. Here in Italy and in the West, Navalny was, on one hand, he was seen as a symbol uh, of the opposition. So I think he was almost made into a hero. And on the other hand, he was very criticized for certain views. So it was said he was a nationalist, a racist, or a homophobe. I I think some of these could even be true, but for what I know, he changed his views a bit, and he nonetheless remains a very brave man, because I think nobody would have returned to Russia after he was poisoned. So
Yes, this is very hard to explain to a Western audience, but first of all, I don't think that he was um, a nationalist and racist in the Western understanding. Like for Russia, he was very like woke, liberal, soy person. While in the West, if you hear some of his old statements that he commented and apologized for later, for some Westerners, he might seem, oh my God, he's like right wing radical politician. But um, I also researched this. It was important for me to see how much he changed, and he did change. And many of his colleagues, political scientists, now say that he changed a lot. And recently, I listened to a podcast with some journalists who had a correspondency with Navalny in jail, who sent letters to him in jail, and there Navalny and he read some of information from Navalny's letters, and there was some thing when Navalny described how he was detained by police several years ago during constant protests, and there he would put to not very good conditions in jail. And, for example, he would sit in a prison cell with other detainees, and those people were illegal immigrants from Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and so on. And there he helped them because Navalny is knows the Russian law, knows Russian laws better than these immigrants. He helped them to write some appeals to the prison administration or some complaints. And he said that many people. So in that letter to this journalist, he said many people accuse me of being being racist, nationalist, but here in real life, I help them. And like, um, sat with them in one prison cell. So his actions, I think, is what really speaks for him. And if he was a president of Russia, there would be freedom of speech and possibility for different political ideologies to be present in the parliament. And yes, might be there will be some uh, like nationalists, but I think that Navalny would not support them. Some other people in Russia would support them, but overall, um, they are not that popular in Russia. I think they would be present in the parliament as well as I don't know, a party of feminists, a party of pensioners. So I would rather have Navalny as president than Putin, who um, who doesn't allow mm, any competitiveness in politics at all.
What do you think it is possible that there is no opposition moment? I know because it is suppressed, but um, I mean, um, do you think that uh, Putin is popular right now, or is it more that he is accepted? It is accepted that he is in power, and this is how it goes. It is how it is, and so we should not make a fuss about it. What do you think?
Um, I think that the majority of Russians does not support Putin, and there were different attempts to make exit polls and investigations. And mm, as far as I remember, about 40% of Russians truly gave their vote for him. But of course, they got they said that Putin got how much 87%, and nobody believes that. And there is a big part of the Russian population who are very depoliticized, and they either don't even have a habit to question the actions of the government or to be worried about politics, or they understand everything, but they just are scared and disheartened, and they know that they cannot change anything. I don't like when Russian people themselves say that, oh, it is in our genes, we're a slave nation, and we need a Tsar who will rule us. I think that is totally not true, and it is just um, how things how things happened to be in today's Russia after 20 years of depolitization and governmental propaganda. I think that um, the majority of people are, yes, they're politicized, but um, we could see how many people wanted an alternative to Putin when they are they were candidates for president who stated that they were not against the war. Like recently, before several months prior to the elections, there were two candidates that really gave hope to the people. First, it was Ekaterina Dunsova. She is just a lawyer and a journalist who said that I want to run for the office, and she had a very clear anti-war position, and she had to get some particular amount of supporters to be able to apply, but they rejected her, saying that there are some mistakes in her documents. The same happened to Boris Nadezhdin, who also had to collect signatures from the Russian citizens, and in both cases they were rejected by the central, like what what do they call, like central committee for the elections, and they in both cases there were long lines of people who stood at the cold in the street to leave their signature for these candidates. So I also left my signature in Tbilisi, um, and it shows how many people don't support Putin. So um, I think if there were true elections, he would not get the majority of the votes. And I really wish Western politicians would not, what do you call it, like accept his legitimacy, not call him a real president. But I don't know how what they will do, because on the other hand, they still have to communicate with Putin and who they will communicate with. So I don't know, but I don't want Putin to be president of my country or to represent me.
Of course, I have to admit that um, even experts in geopolitics, I mean, in international politics, often say that, yes, something like that, that is almost in Russian genes to have this kind of government. But I don't think so either. Uh, it is very ingrained, I think, but I don't think it is inevitable, and I hope it will end.
Yeah, I
So
also agree with this because I think that many people from the West, from all over the world in general, just don't understand the reality of Russia. And if they lived through this from the kindergarten, from the school, with these Soviet teachers who scream at you and who teach you to obey, and these military marches that it was obligatory to participate in them. And I think um, people who understand more about Russia, maybe studied Russian history or international relations and the Russian language, I think they would be astonished by the level of how much actually Russians protested in these years. Because um, in the past 20 years, when the repressions were worsening with every year, mm, there was a lot of cases when people when it was very risky and dangerous to protest, but people still did that. And so I think that any person who believes that it is in our genes, but I think it even sounds horrible, like how we can apply some particular trait to an ethnicity. So people who
yes,
believe that,
yes, it's more, it's less than in your genes, as in your culture. It's so deeply set in your culture that, but I don't think this is true either.
yeah, I think that culture also can change by different. Um, it's all very complex, but I think it can change, and the historical process and how things are uh, changing, it's very difficult. But I believe that one day, um, under some particular consequences, it will be possible for Russia to be free. And mm, yes.
Right. I think uh, what is it? Yes. I'll make one more question. There is an Italian artist who is called Yorit, and is is somewhat famous here in Italy. And there was yes, it is almost a scandal because he attended an event in Sochi,
Mm,
the World Youth event, and you did you made a video about it. So, what were your thoughts about it?
mm, there's some particular amount of Westerners who adore Russia for what I think um, can be explained by again what I said earlier, that democracies don't look beautiful from outside, and autocracies can can create a perfect image. And that's what Russia did, because on YouTube there's a lot of videos of Westerners who, and I hate these videos. Sometimes I hate watch them because I feel outraged that it is my country. I know the truth that is going on there, but these Westerners are um, wearing pink colored glasses, and they walk along these clean streets of central Moscow, and they go to the supermarkets with a with shelves full with groceries, and they say that sanctions don't work, and they make these videos as to oppose the Western politics, the Western anti-Russian narrative, and even though, and they say that we make these videos to show you that not all Russians are bad, but I think that that is not the Western narrative at all. What the Western media is against is the actions of the Russian government, not the Russian people. Um, but I detached from the topic. Yes, I wanted to say that many many people from Western countries moved to Russia, and there are some YouTube channels about families who moved to Russia because they couldn't stand the terrible degeneracy in the West, and that their kids are taught to be gay at school, and that's how they put it. That's why they chose Russia. Um, so just no comments about these people, but I think there's some particular thing that attracts foreigners in Russia, because they see only the beautiful picture that is created by the governmental propaganda. And yes, Moscow is beautiful, but it is like um, the window shop of the country, like the only beautiful place, not the only beautiful place, but um, the richest city in Russia. And indeed, it is a very
It's
comfortable city.
that and Saint Petersburg, maybe.
Mm, St. Petersburg, yes. Some other, Russia has quite a lot of cities, big cities like Kazan, Novosibirsk, and maybe if you earn a lot of money, your life there will be okay. But just look at how people um, earn in general. And I made a video about that festival in Sochi, and basically it was a festival where the Russian government again promoted its point of views to the foreigners without showing other sides. And I really wish that all these Westerners who are mesmerized um, by the Russian government, that they really know the truth. But I don't know, maybe they want to believe that.
Yes, I think it depends. In some cases, they might be paid even, or in others, they might want to believe it.
Yes, and I also would like to add that I noticed that many people who choose to come to Russia or to promote the Russian interests are people who have radical, like right wing views in the West, and
Yes,
it is a
yes,
paradox because they think that they will find freedom in Russia, because Russia restricts LGBT. Russia doesn't have like wokeness as their main narrative. But what these people don't understand is that the Russian government don't want them to be active either. Like I mentioned nationalists in Russia before, and um, basically, if your activity doesn't come from the government, is not agreed with the government, not I'm trying to find this word, not approved by the government, you also will not be able to make some change. So there's a um,
it is
yeah, I
not
was
about some particular value, but it is about control, isn't it?
yes.
So I think I got to the end of my list here, and so I'd like to leave with um, asking you if you have any projects for the future, and then
Mm,
we can say good.
um, I actually don't have any like big future plans. The only thing I try to figure out now is mm, what country I can move to after Georgia, because I don't know how much time I'm going to spend here. So that is the project for the future. As for my videos, I feel that I'm a bit stuck because I've been out of Russia for 1 year and a half, and I still can't follow what happens there inside of the country. But I cannot make vlogs, and people really like my vlogs from the Far East. But now
Were
yeah,
very nice.
yeah, but now I cannot be there physically, and I feel a bit of burnout regarding my channel. Now it's better because I still try to do at least something, to post at least some videos. So my main project now is to figure out the way how to still make videos about Russia, not making them too political, because I'm so tired of politics already, and I feel depressed when I talk about this. But also, I want to sugarcoat everything. I want to keep this middle ground, so to tell people about the Russian culture, but also not overlooking the events that truly happen in Russia. So that's it. Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Before we started recording, you said to me that in the first year since the start of the war, there were many Western journalists or interviewers who asked you an interview, and this is the first interview you have in maybe one year or so, and I'm very we can say I'm very happy and proud to to have done this conversation with you.
Yeah, thank you very much for offering me to talk, and I'm glad that I can share my perspective as a Russian who had to leave Russia. Maybe I don't represent all all the group who left, and not my interests are different from that of other Russians. I mean, but um, mm, I still really appreciate this opportunity to shed the light on our situation, and maybe this will change something. I think that it is better um, to talk and to find the common ground. And I want people in other countries to know that not all Russians support this war.
Thank you, Natasha, for being here today. And you can follow. I mean, you viewers can follow Natasha's channel. It's very interesting, and um, this video, I think, it will be posted in 2 weeks on our channel. I'll be sending you an email. Yes. So, thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Bye.
Who knows? Maybe we'll have another chat another time.
Yeah,
Who
sure.
knows? Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye.